Hello, friend. John Dalton here, Further Emergence podcast, where we explore consciousness, the mystery, and love. And in this episode, we're going into the power of our inner state, personal experience, smiling, embracing uncertainty, loneliness, getting out of bed, and a question about babies. So let's start off with a quick review of the memes on the Further Emergence Instagram feed. I wrote this one. It's a picture of a crossroads, and it says, "You can be suspicious of others, you can expect the best of others. What you choose shapes your reality. There is power in choosing." So that's it, isn't it? There is power in choosing. It doesn't feel like we have power in choosing. It feels like we're all just stuck in the same boat. We're all just sharing the same reality. It's all the same, and you're trying to minimize the bad bits and just trying to avoid the bad bits, trying to avoid pain if possible, and but that's not the case in your experience. But it's a hard one to get your head around, I have to admit. I mean, I wrote a whole book about this, The Gentle Snap. I wrote that is all about how to begin to see through the gaps in reality and begin to see that reality is not a hard and fast thing, and it's not a shared thing either. Like one of the things I talk about, for example, and this might sound a bit mad, but bear with me, is let's say you're standing beside somebody and you say, you see that red car down there? And the other person goes, "Oh yeah, I see the one beside the blue one. Yeah, I see it." Okay, now it's very easy to sort of feel like that there is a red car down there, but even back a little bit from that, it's very easy to kind of think that red is a real thing. Like red is it's always going to be red. The color red is always going to be the color red. But you don't have any experience of a universal red color. All you have is your own experience of what you were told was called red. You don't know that it looks the same to somebody, the person you're standing beside, because you're not looking out of their eyes. You're assuming, because you both agree, that what you see is the same. Now, you might be going, "Oh, for God's sake, John, red is red." I know, but the thing is, that little assumption about a simple little thing like the color red or the color blue or whatever, and the feeling of, we're both having the same experience. I've just said, "You see the red car?" They said, "Yeah, I see the red car." So the red must be real. Red must be a real thing. It must be exactly the same. The thing I see is exactly the same as what they see. But you don't have any direct experience of that. The only thing you've got experience is agreement. But you have no experience of what the other person's experience of red is. You just have your own experience. And you can kind of spread that out to everything. You don't know that you're having the same experience as anybody because you never look out of anybody else's eyes. And you might go, "What are you talking about?" But it's important for the reason of, if you view existence as this thing that you're just part of, then you are at the mercy of, good things could happen, bad things could happen. It's all happening. You just try and get out of the way of the steamrollers of life, Or you could begin to see that, hang on, it's just my experience, okay? Everything that I haven't directly experienced is just a story. So I might hear about things that I'd prefer to avoid, but that doesn't mean they're going to happen to me. Okay. Similarly, like when you talk to that person who's got the very untrustworthy, you could say cynical perspective on life, you can kind of go, "Yeah, okay, I'm going to choose not to see things that way." And again, I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but your inner state is really the only thing that you have control over. So choosing to kind of go, "Well, I am going to focus on the things that I want, or the things that make my heart sing. Those are the things I'm going to focus on." And what you'll find is the more you focus on them, the more they expand. So you pretty much can have the reality you want, or you can certainly get it closer to what you want by focusing on the things that you want. And, depending on your upbringing or what way your mind is configured, you might have feelings of, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And you can justify it. You can justify everything, but in the end, you're left with what you justify. And that's kind of what this meme is about. Like, it's talking about people and saying you can be suspicious of people or you can expect the best of people. And what you choose shapes your reality. And there's a lot of power in choosing. One of the things that the illusion that we're in, one of the big illusions we have to kind of overcome is the feeling of we're powerless. We're just this little small, insignificant. I was only thinking about that Monty Python song, the Universe song, where it's talking about you're floating in a galaxy and a million, billion, gazillion stars and nothing means anything and whatever. It's a very funny song, but that's not your experience. Your experience is not one of insignificance. Okay? Your experience of reality is of intense significance. Okay? And when I say your experience, meaning, you could meet the most powerful person in the world and you would still never look out of their eyes. And your meeting that person would only happen in your experience. You could meet a famous movie star, a famous singer, a famous Nobel Prize winner. It doesn't matter. Anyone you think is really important. Your experience of meeting that person is only ever going to happen in your experience. Meaning, it's only going to happen inside your little reality bubble. So, viewed from that perspective, you can see how significant your experience is because it's the only one you have. I mean, how could it be more significant? It couldn't be more significant than everything happens in your experience. Or put another way, it's your show. You are the star of the show. And I don't mean that in an egocentric kind of way. I just mean in a way of seeing things the way they are. That even if you feel like you're in the most menial, insignificant, my life doesn't mean anything. It means everything to you because it's what you wake up into. It's not like you wake up into somebody else's life, or you could even do that. You can't do that, okay? So this you and the story of your life is of absolute significance to you. And it's more significant to you than it is to anybody else, okay? So part of the illusion is this feeling of, you're just part of 7 billion people and you don't matter and it's all nothing. And that's not the case at all. You just look at your own experience, Again, coming back to that comparison of like a virtual reality game, You could put the goggles on, the headset on and get into the game, but you still know that it's you playing the game. And the characters that you interact with they're not real. And that's not to say people aren't real, or they are real, but it's all from your perspective. So you could have if you're playing a role-playing type game, you could be a lowly character, a foot soldier or an insignificant character, but you still know it's you and that you're playing this, really exciting game. So your experience is very significant, and that's part of getting out of the illusion. And then the other thing is that, what this meme is talking about is that you can cherry pick how you want it to be. And don't be under any illusion that you can't change it. And you can, but you change it by what you focus on. And that means grabbing every the tiniest little morsel of what you want, to claim it, and to not allow your mind to kind of focus on all the stuff you don't want, Grab each little thing that you do want, and over time it will grow, and your life will be more and more like what you want. I didn't write the next one. It's very good, though. I don't really know what it means, but I do know what it means. It says, it's just a picture of a circle. And it says, there's no audience to perform for. There's just you. And this is brilliant on so many levels. It's so, I think, what people call meta, meaning that the fact that this appears in a social media, on a social media platform, or in the context of social media, that's very significant as well, because there's like two parts to social media. One is consumption, meaning you're just sort of scrolling through, seeing what everyone else is doing, seeing what people are trying to sell you things, and seeing what the algorithm thinks you're going to want to see. So that's consumption. And part of that is also keeping your finger on the pulse of what other people are thinking about or what's important to them, you know. And then the other thing is creation, or, you know, adding to the conversation, putting your little photo out or your little meme out or whatever. And to see something like this, there's no audience to perform for, there's just you. In the context of that, it really puts the brakes on. And you can put little bits of music with posts now, I discovered. So the bit of music I put with this was a Tom Waits song called Temptation. And it went really well with it. Because it's like, that's the temptation, is to feel like that there is an audience to perform for. Whether that is in the creation of art or the creation and curation of photos of yourself, or little videos, or little, you know, because it's such a lovely time now, because the gap between the pedestal and the normal everyday people is getting smaller all the time. It used to be, you know, back in like when Hollywood was like in the 30s, you know, they were unreachable, these people, you know, they lived in a different world, and your ordinary person just, you know, felt like they had no access to that world. And similarly, gurus, spiritual gurus back then were up on big stages, you know, and everybody was very far away. You know, the groups of people that created things, musicians, there were so many gatekeepers to get through to for musicians or artists. Now that gap is tiny, you know, it's almost non-existent. Okay, you just have to look at influencers. I'm not saying influencers are a thing to aspire to or not. I'm not really commenting on them, but just the gap is gone. You know, like you can create anything you want and find an audience. You know, which has kind of brought the pedestal down, which is good, and it's allowed people to share a lot more of just the ordinary day to day of their life, and that's great, because now you can't do that. You can't even curate a photograph of yourself and not kind of realize that on some level, kind of go, you know, all those wonderful photographs I see of my heroes and my movie stars or icons or whatever, they're probably pretty ordinary, actually. They're probably just, I know how it's done now. So they're not, I can't kind of think, it's much harder for me to sort of feel like they're better than me. You know, or that they have it together more than me, or that in some way their grass is greener. So this thing of there's no audience to perform for, there's just you. You know, that kind of speaks to what I was talking about earlier on. When you come back to your own experience, just your experience. It's as you come into it more and more, it can feel very lonely if you really get into it, you know. Because you only ever look out of your eyes. You're only going to wake up in your body, in your, you know, in your life. You're not going to see it from anyone else's life, anyone else's experience. And in a way, that's kind of what people try and do on social media, is they try and see their own lives through a filter of what they would want it to be, rather than how it is. the full 100% of it, you know. So they kind of take this 1% and they polish it and shine it and tuck it in and, you know, fluff it up and colorize it and do all the things to you know, to present this 1% image. And then they get to look at it and go, yeah, I'm looking pretty good in that photo. I look like I'm standing beside my beautiful car, and yeah, I think I'm presenting my life the way I would like it to be, knowing full well that it's not really like that. You know, you walk away from the car, you've got trash that you have to put out, you've got a blocked toilet maybe, or your washing machine is leaking, or all the stuff of life, you know. But nobody's going to put that on Instagram unless it's ironically, you know. So this idea of there's only you, there's no audience, there's no one else out there, that can be very lonely. But it's like a thing you have to go through to get to the other side of it. And on the other side of it is the realization that while it is all from your experience and it is all an illusion, there are two things that are real in this illusion. One of them is communication, and the other one is love. And that's what it's worth being here for. Those two things. That's the reason we stay and that we keep going with it. Okay. The rest of it is all just interesting, but not real. It just disappears every night. Every night it all disappears. Deep dreamless sleep, gone. No you, no personality, no fears, no pain, no nothing. And where is love and communication in deep dreamless sleep? I have no memory of it. It's not like I am conscious of love and communication in deep dreamless sleep. But of all the things that I'm just kind of talking about in existence, of all the things I've seen in existence, the only things that feel like I bring them with me into the mystery, which is where I go in deep dreamless sleep, are love. That comes with me. I have no memory of it, but I just kind of know it does. And the communication that happens in existence and the increase in my consciousness that comes as a result of the communication that happens in existence, that goes with me into the mystery as well. Again, going into the mystery and going into deep dreamless sleep often feels to me like going into a kitchen in a restaurant. I don't even know if they have this anymore, but you remember, you might see it in movies where the kitchen, the entrance to the kitchen, there's one door in and one door out, and you can only go into the kitchen through the indoor, and you can only come out through the outdoor, because otherwise you'll be bash into each other with plates and whatnot. And it's my sense is that we go into the kitchen, we go into deep dreamless sleep, drop down through dreaming, drop down through the psychic world, and then we drop down into the mystery. My sense is that we enter the kitchen of the mystery, just like now, fully conscious. And then we do whatever we do in the mystery. But as we come back out through the outdoor, back into existence, we forget what we did in the kitchen. That's my sense of it. But I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I did write this one. It's the picture of a ceiling. The picture is of a ceiling fan in this case. And that's to conjure up the idea of lying in bed looking at the ceiling. Isn't it amazing how many thoughts, profound thoughts, that happen staring at the bedroom ceiling, or the ceiling above you, above your couch if you lie on your couch, or when you're lying down you look up. Any other time you're not looking up at the ceiling of things, you're just engaged in the whatever. But if you're looking at the ceiling, there's probably something going on. And what it says is, start with smiling. If you're staring at the ceiling, wondering how you're going to get through another day, when it feels like there isn't one thing worth getting out of bed for, try smiling. Start with that. Smile for 5 minutes straight, whether you feel like it or not. It will make the next thing easier. You're doing great. Now, there are studies on the benefits of smiling. And I'm certainly not a fan of smiling when you don't feel like it. But this is a sort of a trick, if you are caught in inertia and you are lying in bed and you're like, I don't know how I can get out of bed. I don't know how I can do it. Forcing yourself to smile changes your state. It's kind of proven. It's just between you and you. Nobody's going to see your fake smile. And it is a fake smile because you won't feel like smiling. But it's kind of like a trick to trick your brain into releasing some mild endorphins, which will help you get out of bed. And you can do this at any time. But I don't recommend that you walk around with a fake smile on your face all the time. It's not for other people. It's for yourself. The smile that you give other people should come from your toes, I think. It should come from your heart, really, But I mean, come up from the depths of yourself, that you are genuinely seeing the radiance in the other person and that you're smiling at that, or you're smiling because of the radiance in your own heart. That's the sort of smile I think to give to other people. And if that's not there, don't force it. But this is more to, again, help with your inner state and your inner sovereignty. And it's a trick. It's a trick for your nervous system. You smile for 5 minutes, you will feel better. And sometimes that's all you can do to help you get over the hump. Because often inertia, you feel like you're going to need a huge amount of energy to get through inertia. But you don't really. All you need is a little bit, a tiny little spark. And then before you know it, you're up and about. And the feeling that you had when you were lying on the bed and you had there was nothing there. There was nothing to get you out of bed. Is gone. I didn't write this one, but it's pretty good. It says, relax. When you try to control everything, you enjoy nothing. Trust the wait and embrace the uncertainty. When nothing is certain, anything is possible. Feel the power that comes from focusing on how you want to feel and let the universe fill in the blanks. So there's so much good stuff in this. Trust the wait and embrace the uncertainty. That sounds great, doesn't it? It's so hard to do. It's so hard to do. Embrace the uncertainty, That's like saying embrace the pain, because the uncertainty is very painful. The facing into the abyss of anything could happen at any time, nothing is certain, I mean, we're slightly removed from it now, but 2 or 3 years ago, we were right up at, in the face of this. We were all locked down. What happened? What? And nothing was as usual. Everything stopped. And not only did everything stop, but other things started. Like the government started giving us money for nothing, for staying at home. What? Even that was unsettling, Now everything is, in inverted commas, back to normal, sort of. But that knowledge of uncertainty, particularly if you're interested or drawn to consciousness, it's something that's there all the time. And I don't know if embracing the uncertainty is how I feel about it. It's more a case of becoming comfortable with the uncomfortableness that is uncertainty. And then this idea of focusing on how you want to feel and let the universe fill in the blanks. That's really powerful in my experience. And again, it's this thing of taking care of your own inner sovereignty. And if you don't feel the way you want to feel, there are things you can do to help that. Now, if you're feeling something because you're going through something, or something is releasing or percolating out of your system, then, as I've said before, you're better off to face that, not try and run away from it. But that's different to worrying. Worrying is something you can do something about. Being fearful of possible outcomes in the future, that's something you can do something about. Noticing that you have a tendency to expect outcomes that you don't really want, like you find your mind planning for disaster. That's something you can do about it, because that's not going to make you feel good. Planning for disaster is not going to make you feel good, and you don't know what's going to happen. And chances are when it happens, you'll deal with it like you've dealt with everything. So yeah, this is great. It's a great meme. Next one I did write. Not completely sure what it means, even though I wrote it. It says, if loneliness is your disco, dance anyway. So my sense of it is that there's a feeling of like if you're dealing with loneliness, the thing to do is to go and be around people. And sometimes that's true. And there's lots of things that you can do. It's quite easy to be around people. I don't mean like dating sites and that kind of thing, unless that's something you feel drawn to, in which case go for it. But there's so many things, groups of people that you can join and that have similar interests to you. And if you make the focus the thing that you're interested in, let's say you're like, I don't know, model trains. You can join a group of people who like model trains. Let's say you like gardening. You could join a group of people that like gardening, or singing, or Morris dancing, or flower arranging, or motorbike maintenance. Doesn't matter what the thing is. If you make that the focus, then the people just naturally are baked into it, and it just happens very easily. It does require you to leave home, but other than that, you can be not lonely pretty quickly. But from a spiritual point of view, if loneliness is coming up for you, then you have to kind of really sit into it. And that's kind of what this is. That if you're dealing with loneliness, it can feel like a bit sacred, meaning you have to be a bit reverential around loneliness. And because it's so painful, whether it's the loneliness of knowing that there's just you, it's all out of your eyes, it's just your existence, whether it's that, or whether it's just, I'm on my own, I've been conditioned to feel like I should be in a relationship, I should have, a partner, I should have kids, I should have a family, I don't, I'm on my own. And you have that kind of, conditional kind of pressure and pain, intense pain, particularly around holidays where, there's a lot of social feelings of, like, say, the sort of Christmas holidays or any kind of things, when you're out and about and you see everyone, they all look really happy and, oh, I wish I had that, that kind of loneliness. It's very easy for it to feel very heavy. That's what I mean by reverential. And that's kind of what this meme is. It's like, it's basically, if loneliness is happening, if that's what you're going through, then don't fight it. There's nothing sacred about pain. And that's kind of what this idea of if loneliness is your disco, then dance anyway. And it's not the case. I don't mean to force yourself to be happy. If you're in pain, you're in pain. But I think it's this thing of seeing the difference between pain and suffering, If loneliness is coming up for you, that's painful, okay? But it doesn't have to be heavy, and it doesn't have to be go on forever. And if your whole focus is you're poised, you're waiting for it to be finished, then you don't let the pain tip over into suffering, we can do that very easily. You've been in the situation where you're in pain, and then it starts to go away, and then your mind goes, but what about that time that we did that beautiful thing together? And then the pain comes again, and it goes into another loop. You didn't need the second loop. The second loop was just suffering unnecessarily. The first loop was just a natural arising of the pain, and maybe hopefully all going well, leaving your system. But our minds kind of do this looping thing. So it's this idea of that to have a sense of lightness underneath the pain, that lightness that it's just waiting for the pain to leave so that you can return to the lightness, And that's the idea of, if loneliness is your disco, meaning if that's what's happening, dance anyway, dance with it. I did write this one, sort of. I came across this photo of a person lying in bed, and they're reading a book called How to Get Up and Get Dressed. And it's funny when you see it. To me, I kind of went, oh, I know. I have a sense of what that could mean, or certainly what it has meant to me in the past where I have been lying in bed sort of reading the How to Get Up and Get Dressed book in my head, like how do I get from here to there? It's kind of a theme really in this episode, hasn't it been? So what I wrote is, some days it can feel like this, like the simplest thing is not so simple. You can stare at the ceiling pinned with wondering, who are you? Where are you? How you got here? Take comfort in knowing that every day you are new or have the chance to be. And here's the beautiful thing. When it's time to move, your body will know what to do. It knows where the shower is and if you need one. It knows where your clothes are kept and what item goes on which part of your body. Remember, it's been breathing you with love the whole time you were wandering. And it speaks to this thing, a bit like looking at the ceiling, and smiling. It speaks to this thing of sometimes the weight of the spiritual life can pin you to the bed. And you can have this feeling of, what am I doing here? How did I get here? Who am I? What is this? What is this thing I've woken up into? You can have that, And if you're flooded, like sometimes one of the things that can pin you to the bed is you can be flooded with the weight of existence of, oh my God, I have to do this thing, then this other thing. Particularly if you don't have a deadline, if you don't have to get up for something, you don't have anything to get up for specifically, but there are a lot of things that need to be done, that can pin you to the bed. And it's this idea of every day you can be new. Every day you have the chance to be new. It's very easy to not feel like that. It's very easy to sort of feel like we are who we are. And, self-knowledge is a beautiful thing once it doesn't become limiting. And that's one of the things that you can purge your language of. If you hear yourself saying things like, I am the sort of person who, I don't do that myself, and I don't encourage anyone to, because we're mysterious, really, aren't we? We think we know ourselves, and then something pops out of the woodwork, and we see ourselves doing something or being something or having a desire to do something that we didn't even think was in there. So I honor that mystery, and I don't pretend to know myself, even though I think I know myself reasonably well. I don't pretend to know the mystery of who I am, or what's in there, or what can come out. So every day you can be new, and every day you can change. So settling into that gives you a sort of freedom, and then also it's nice to acknowledge that it's almost like a switch goes on, and suddenly you're in the shower, and you go, how did I even get here? And then suddenly you're dressed. Like, how did that happen? And that's there's a part of your system lovingly just takes care of things. And because your mind wasn't so involved in it, you would just get out of the way a little bit. It just gets on with it. Just gets on with all the things that need to be done. And that's a beautiful demonstration of love. Your little system taking care of you. Farm news, not a huge amount, I must say. The fibre broadband is being laid down in the valley. It's been going on for months. They put it in on the road, but during the week some guys came down in a van. They didn't knock on the door or anything. They just came down to check it out. So I think I might be able to get fibre broadband soon, which would mean I could do live streaming again, which I haven't done since I moved here 2 years ago. So yeah, I could do meditations again, or I could do more live things again. I don't know if I will. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. I know people liked it when I was doing it before, but everything changes, doesn't it? Hey, have you signed up for my weekly friendly notes? They come out every Sunday. They are fun. I think so anyway. So if you want to get them, just go to the website, furtheremergence.com, and you'll see a thing to sign up for them. I had a question come in on the Discord, the Further Emergence Discord. It says, "Hi John, I wanted to ask a question about unconsciousness. When babies are born, they don't seem to have any unconsciousness. So when and where does it come from? Does it develop as we get older and continue to come throughout our lives, or is it always there and becomes apparent as time goes on? So this is a great question. I had lots of reflections on that. I hadn't really thought about it too much to do with babies, even though I've worked with lots and lots of babies. And it was one of those lovely times. It's one of the reasons I like getting questions. I much prefer getting questions than just coming up with things to talk about myself, because half the time I don't know what's in here. It's kind of like what I was saying about being, the mystery. Like, I didn't realize how much I knew about this baby question till I was asked. So without a question, I don't know if I would have accessed this knowledge. It's just in there. So, as I say, worked with lots of babies, but let's start earlier than that. And I'm very grateful to Rupert Sheldrake and his work in morphic resonance. And I like Rupert's work because he's a scientist and he applies the scientific approach to a lot of the things that I'm interested in. But roughly his idea of morphic fields is, and this isn't exactly how he describes it, but it's how I experience it, or have experienced it. And that's this idea that if you put an acorn in the ground, how does it know to become an oak tree? Now, some branches of science will say, well, it's the DNA. Rupert's contention is that the acorn throws up an energetic field, and the cells, or the multiplication of cells in the acorn as it grows into the shape of this energetic field. And that's been my experience as well, that our bodies are pretty much just a collection of cells. And their cells are all differentiated into, this is a neuron, and that's a skin cell, and that's an eyeball cell, or a lung cell, or a liver cell, or whatever. High differentiation in the cells. But similarly, there's a coherent field behind our body that holds the cells all in the shape. And, when a person dies, that coherent field is no longer there. So the cells just all disintegrate back into what they were before. The atoms, just go back into are used for other things. Now, when at the very beginning of conception, you've just got one cell, and then one cell is fertilized, and one cell becomes two become four become 8, and so on. So, just on a physical level, there's a lot of information is packed into that little one cell before it divides. The whole human body is packed in there, okay, energetically. And it's similar with unconsciousness. All of our unconsciousness is packed in. It's a very small little space we have to come through, this moment of fertilization, or I'm really sure when consciousness comes in, but it's whenever it does, it's small what it has to come into, okay? And it's similar to the way our whole body is condensed into, a small number of cells, and then the differentiation, becomes apparent. The unconsciousness that we have taken on to work through in our life, it's condensed into our shape, So, like, from my experience of working with babies, they're not blank slates, and not by a long stretch. They are, they've got their own stories, they've got their very individual personalities, they've got their things that they're working out, even from that age. So what I think the person in the question is when they're talking about, when babies are born, they don't seem to have any unconsciousness. Babies are very innocent because they're very close to the mystery. They've just come out of the mystery. But the unconsciousness that they're working through is compressed in there. And as their body grows and whatever, then their unconsciousness unfolds as well. Now that might take the shape of, the conditioning that they are that they receive from their parents and circumstances, and it's not like unconsciousness. It is that what they are unconscious of. We want to figure something out. We spend our whole lives figuring something out about ourselves, and it's very personal. What everyone is figuring out is very different. That is at the root of everything. It comes in with us right from the beginning, but it may not be apparent. Just like hair color, changes. Baby's hair can start off blonde or very dark, and then as it grows, it changes shape, changes color. Some babies start off small and then they grow to be huge, meaning very tall. So it's kind of similar, what the person is working through, what unconsciousness they're dealing with, what their unconsciousness they're having to work through, is not necessarily revealed straight away, but it's in there from the beginning. Just have to look at twins, a great example. They come through very similar circumstances. Upbringing, parents, so many things are the same, yet they're very different people. Even if they're identical twins, they're very different, and that's because they've got very different things that they're working out in their lives. So that's my experience of babies. Yes, they've got their unconsciousness, and they spend their whole lives working it out, just like the rest of us. All right, that's all I have for you this time. I trust you're well. I trust you're of good cheer. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.